You a vlogger, facing over. You a queen, wanna less than I'm a gozy. Owamie, Owamie. Owamie, Owamie. Owamie, Owamie. Owamie, Owamie. Hey, hey, hey. Girl, you're such a powerful woman.
Hi ninjas, how are you doing? It's your girl Owamie, and welcome back to my channel. If it's the first time joining me, most definitely welcome. Please do make sure that you subscribe and obviously hit the bell. I absolutely love you, and do not forget, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. It's at boldly Owamie. Now, wow, I feel a bit scared. I won't lie to you guys. Not because I'm scared of anyone, but I think I'm just scared of the emotions. As I start this, I feel like it's gonna be a series, but basically a tell-all. I'm going to tell you guys everything that I can be able to. So I'm gonna go ahead and just start off by putting a bit of some disclaimers and the reason why I'm even doing this. So my name is Owamie. My vendor name is Temuruo. So I was born and raised Temuruo, Nechibajwauru. Up until I was in high school, my mom would come back. Like, this was actually a bit late in my life. Like, I think I was doing grade 11, somewhere there. My mom would always come home and she would started calling me Umtano Owamie, 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 Owamie. And I don't know if I think that there was this little girl called Owamie, because she used to work at Haskororo and she loved that little girl. So I think her name was Owamie and my mom loved it and loved her. So when she came home, she started calling me Owamie, and that's how I got my name Owamie. Now, when my mother passed, I honestly opted to be called Owamie and not Temburuo. It was a pet name to me from her, and so I preferred Owamie more than Temburuo, and that's the reason why on all my socials you will find Owamie and not Temburuo, really. But Temburuo is also my name. And yeah, but Owamie is my preferred name, okay? I think that is just a bit of an introduction. I'm gonna be telling you guys a story of how I personally feel me and my sister have been abused in the justice system. And I felt like if I just started and came here and told you guys, well, we've been in court for over 2 years, and all the events that went down, some of you guys might not really understand that this did not just start here. This is something that has been happening for years. This abuse has been happening for years. It's only now that I'm strong enough to can say I'm gonna fight. And obviously, I'm not going to fight the illegal way. I'm going to fight the legal way. But the same legal system is the same one that is failing us today. And I made a video on TikTok, and I saw that it was a lot of women that were out there and they were talking about this, and I just felt it is so wrong. And I refuse for my story to just be one of those that is never told. I think if you know me, you know that I will always and forever have my story told by me. No one is gonna tell my story for me. So basically, I'm gonna go ahead and just tell you guys where as far back as I can remember. I am also going to do my best to respect my mother's memory because my mother is late. But I'm going to get into a few stuff before my mom passed. And these are some of the stuff that I've never actually spoken about on the internet. I'm going to also address the allegations that were made by my ex-husband of how I was kicked out of my father's house and all those stuff, right? Now, the one thing that I'm going to say to you guys is that this story is going to go around me, my 3 sisters, my father, and my mother. I do have a stepmom, and in every single thing, or every time I do an interview or talk about this, everyone is like, oh, is she like an evil stepmom or this and this and that? 1,000% not. I can go ahead and just tell you guys that I do not blame her in any way. Anyone that would ask, like, okay, where is she when all this is happening, is someone that does not know my father. It's someone that does not know that old man. You understand? So I just want to get that out of you guys' mind. You guys know I'm very outspoken. If there was any injustice that was happening from her side, I would not be scared to say it. But please don't include her in this. I'm going to be very strategic. I do have 6 siblings, and I love all of them, every single one of them. However, this story I'm only going to include only the 2, right? It will be me and my 2 sisters. So yeah, this one is not an easy one. Wow. Okay. Just thinking about a lot of stuff that have happened growing up, it gives me a bit of anxiety. Being an adult now, I do see that there was a lot of injustice that happened, a lot of misuse of power, I should say. But maybe that's how it was, because obviously our parents are old. My father is old. My mother was also old. And maybe from that generation that was okay, but obviously some of the stuff that happened, I feel like in this generation would never fly. And parenting styles are very different. One parenting style I will never take from is my father's. So basically what I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys is that I was born into a family where people in that family went to school. My father was a principal up until he retired. I don't know if he was ever a teacher. Like, from as far back as I was a child, literally, I remembered him being a principal. My mother went to school after we were born. I do remember the time that my mother, came to Joburg, went to school, and my mother was a nurse. So she did pass away working as a nurse. So, in the whole family, man, the adults, my uncles, they all went to school. From what I hear, history, my father took them to school. So they were teachers, or they are teachers, I think. My other uncle, I think, has retired, and then the other one retired and then went back. He is now again a teacher. So I would sit down and actually say, I think my father knows the importance of education. Seeing that he did make sure that his mother's kids, his brothers, went to school, all of them, and he made sure that he is the one that put in that effort and made sure that they went to school, because I do believe my grandfather passed away when they were young. So my father had to somehow, I think, take responsibility. So growing up, guys, it wasn't easy. I think that as a child, you only know what is around you, Thinking about my childhood, I thought my childhood was okay. There was a lot of stuff that I would look at and I'm like, wow, I wish, we had the luxuries that like our uncles' children had, but we didn't. Now being an adult and understanding that my father was making more than all of them, yet they were able to provide a better life for their kids, literally is one of those things that I look at it and I'm like, that's something that's very interesting. We grew up, guys, and when growing up, I used to think we were poor. And when I'm saying that I used to think we were poor, is because obviously I was young. As a child, you only see the things that are around you. You understand? The village knew my father is a very rich man. He was driving the some of the latest cars. I'm not even going to lie. He has always been a businessman. He has always had like caves. You remember the times of caves? He has always been into businesses. You understand? So looking at people out there and they see like him, he's always suited up. My father had clothes for decades. I'm not even going to lie to you guys. Like the suits that my father had, and we are not talking about like cheap suits here. You know, even at that time, like he was always dressed to the nine. He was always driving nice cars. You know, he was always this and that. But the life that people thought we lived was not the life that we lived. I remember eating eggs and pap, guys, for months and months and months. Months and months and months. He would buy eggs with like a box, and he would put the box there. And once the eggs are finishing, he would make sure that the other box is next to it. At this point, like my younger sister, who comes after me, Ryan's mom, she does not eat eggs till today. And her hatred towards eggs started that time. Like we ate eggs, guys, to a point where we were exhausted of eggs. And I remember one of our helpers, she would go out there and get muroho, which I think is called relish. Like just go out there, pick murohonyane, you know, and cook that. And she would actually give us at least an option. You eat eggs or muroho. And sometimes we would go for muroho because, guys, we were tired of eggs. Now, mind you, guys, this is the time that, if I remember well, our mothers were both like going to school or what, I can't remember exactly, but I just remember being a child and looking at the fact that our uncle's children used to eat meat a lot. They used to have bread with paloni and cheese. They used to have tea that had, cremora. Those were luxuries that growing up I used to wish I was born in that family and not my father's house, because I didn't understand, like, why are we so poor? Why do we have to drink black tea? Why do we have to eat bread that does not even have rama a lot of times, you know? But my father literally had shops, he's driving the nice cars. People look at us and they think, oh, you know, these kids are from a rich family. And at that time, guys, like being young, I mean, looking at it now, I do understand that eating eggs and pap, it's a luxury. Do you understand what I'm saying? But in the mind of a child then, it wasn't, because we were sick and tired of it. You know, there was a lot, man, that basically would just happen that as an adult now, I would never put my child who's Ray, through all of that. So, we grew up and we used to go to a private school. And I remember, like, there were times where almost every day would have to wake up and literally ask for, pocket money. Taking your child to a private school and giving them the barest of the minimum, knowing damn well that you could have afforded more, that part literally just hurts so much. I do have a lot of scars from the time that I was going to a school called St. Augustine. We faced a lot of abuse in that school, and that was because we were literally considered poor. And mind you, guys, we were going to the same school with my uncle's daughters, and they were like the elite. Their lunchbox, guys, had, bread that had paloni, that had cheese. They even had fruits, just like a balanced diet. And I remember with us, it would just be like a quarter of a bread that is not even cut because there's no rama, there's no nothing. And then you'll be given a sweetened in a bottle, and then they would just send us to school. I remember in the beginning of almost every month, if I can't remember well, they would always, we would go to assemblies I think it was every Monday and every Friday. And if it is the Friday or if it is the Monday of month end, and you have not paid your school fees, they would always actually like point you out and be like, okay, stand aside. Like they I don't know how they knew. I think they used to just have a list, and obviously our class teachers, I guess, they would just know. But it was so embarrassing, guys. It was so embarrassing that almost every single month, we would have to be pulled aside, and we're the ones that did not pay. And it wasn't only us, I get that, but others would jump. Others sometimes would jump. But I feel like we were always a constant. And they used to make it in such an embarrassing way that, like, let's say maybe because, we would always go with line. The moment I see them, my heart would just start racing and dropping because I'd be so embarrassed of the fact that, like, when they pull you aside, everybody knew that it means you have not paid. The rich kids, or rather those kids whose parents were on it, when it came to the payments, I remember they used to just look at you. And guess what? I don't really remember my uncle's kids being on that pulled line. And I used to just be so embarrassed, guys. I used to dread month end because, oh my gosh, it was just so embarrassing. Being young, I mean, now I know that there are people that will be like, well, you should have been grateful that you were going to a private school. I get that now. But one thing that I can tell you is that with everything that my father had, I truly do believe that he could have been paying our school fees on time. He could have been able to do that. But I think he just had other priorities. And in with that, it definitely used to embarrass us. It left a lot of wounds and scarring. I think even till today, my biggest fear is having my son think that we're poor. Because I felt that way. And I know how big of an impact that was to me and how much I've had to work out of some of these things that I experienced as a child, some of them being eating disorders and stuff, just because of the experiences that I had when I was young. A child's mind does not develop, a child's mind is in a different way than that of an adult. As an adult, you do understand the bigger picture, but as a child, you don't have a bigger picture to understand. You only see whatever it is that is in front of you, and what was in front of us at that time was that we are from a poor family. The struggle was real. There was a lot that would actually happen. Things like whenever we were growing, if maybe there was DSTV coming in, our uncles will get it first before my father did for us. So we would go to their house to try and watch, and there are certain things that happened that were not nice. Like you will be told to sit on the floor because whatever is it, and I don't blame anybody because everyone is supposed to just be responsible for their own kids. There's a lot of stuff that definitely happened, and that was really sad. That was really sad. And I think that I'm just trying to show you guys the type of person that my father was even when we were younger. And this is the time that my mom was also still alive. I would go ahead and just go to the times that my father kicked me out of the house. Wow. Those are not easy moments for me. First of all, my father has never set me down or beat me or kicked me out of the house for any boy, because that's one thing that I feel like I definitely had to clarify. I've never ever had a fight wherein they're kicking me out or they're sitting me down with a meeting or whatever because, Njola with this guy or whatever. No. The first and only guy that they ever had that I was dating, from my knowledge, is literally my ex-husband. And that was the time that my mother told them that, she's with a guy and this and that. So the narrative that I was kicked out because I was busy with that's a lie. But I will go ahead and tell you that my father has kicked me out of the house a couple of times. I think, if I can remember well, it might be 3 times. I think, or 4. I don't know, maybe 3. So the time that I can remember as far back that I got kicked out of the house was because my father was busy doing doors, right? He was putting doors onto the new house. And that day, I think he woke up and he left. So I thought that he was not around. And I can't remember if I had told my mom or who I had told, or I had told my grandmom that I'm going to visit my sister, right? My sister from my aunt's house, and she's married, right? So I just wanted to go see her. I literally went, and I was young, man. I can't remember exactly how young I was, but I remember that I was really young, And I went there, I visited her, I saw her, and then I went home. When I went home, it wasn't even late, it wasn't dark, because I knew that we were not even allowed to walk out dark. But I had actually said that, okay, I'm going, and this is where I'm going. I don't know if I told my grandmom or who I told, but there's someone I told. My father basically comes back, and then I guess maybe he came because I was the one that was helping him hold the doors as he was, screwing them in and stuff. I don't know exactly what happened, guys, but I got kicked out of the house for that. Or I went to visit my sister, literally. I was so young that I wasn't even at an age where I would be with boys. Honestly, like I was really like a very young teenager. So and that was that. I don't know if they even called to confirm if I was there or not, but I was there, and that was the first time I do remember getting kicked out of the house. And then my grandmom, I remember, if I'm not mistaken, was the one that said, no, come stay with me and I'll go talk to your father. And they had to talk to my dad, and I had to sleep at one of my uncle's houses, I think for a few days, if I'm not mistaken, up until Your Highness decided that, I could come home. That was really very traumatic for me. Now, what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna try my best to tell this story without emotions, because I don't want that they're gonna say, oh, she was trying to manipulate people. But that was really traumatic for me, guys. Being very young, I felt homeless. I really did. I felt unwelcomed. He did more damage than he literally thought he actually did. Maybe he thought he was disciplining me, but I feel like there could have been a better way for him to discipline me than to say get out of my house for simply visiting my sister. And yeah, that is a memory that I did share with my ex in confidence, obviously. That's why they say never share any information of your family, trauma, old, whatever, with a man, because he would try use that against you when you guys fight. And he did, though he twisted because he's a liar. But yeah, that was really a very traumatic experience for me. Ever since then, I just never really felt welcomed. I felt like I had to walk on eggshells as a child because I did not want to be homeless. Whew. It affected me a lot. It brought a lot of fear to me, and so that's how it was. Nobody in that family would ever check my father or talk to him about the things that he would do. I don't know if it's because they just were afraid of him. I really honestly do not know. But that old man has done so much trauma in my life that, wow. But yeah, my mother was there, and I do remember whenever my father would leave, like my mom would be like, come home, because it's in the same yard. She would say, oh, come home, he's not around. And I would sit, eat, whatever, and then when they see the lights coming, my mom would be like, hey, go on the other side, go to your grandmother's because your father is coming back, and then that was when they went to talk to him. I literally just feel so sick to my stomach that literally just me going to visit my sister was reason enough for me to get kicked out of his house, but anyway, yeah, that was that. The second time that I got kicked out, if I can remember well, if that's the second time, there was a time that I was about 17, I think, 16, somewhere there. I think 16 or 17. In my mother's bedroom, there was this phone, right, that belonged to my dad. Now, me being young, and also we were so sheltered in my home that we never used to go out. So we didn't know much about anything. And remember, I'm from a deep rural area. So things like a contract, I did not understand what a contract was. I didn't even have a phone at that time, So there was a phone that was in my mother's room, and I knew that it was my father's phone. And I remember, I think one day I just switched it on, and I made a call with that phone, and it called, I can't remember who is it that I called, but then it called, I spoke to that person, and that was it. I think there was an emergency of some sort, and I don't know if I called who I called. I can't remember, man. Was it any? I don't know, guys. But anyway, that happens, and the phone calls. So I'm like, wow. So this phone just calls. It doesn't need airtime or anything like that. I know it's so dumb. I was doing standard 9 at that time, so I think I was 16 going to 17. So, that basically happens. I called maybe a few times, and then I left it there. Fast forward, I was now doing matric. when I was doing matric, that was when I got my first phone. So I remember there was a time, I can't remember what is it that I needed to do or who I needed to call. I was also just being told, guys, I will take that on me. And I remember I actually took the SIM card out of my father's phone and I put it in my phone, right? And then I made some calls and I was like, well, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to need to call, whatever. And I'm like, I'm going to take this SIM card and I'm going to put it in my phone. I'm going to call. And then once I'm done, I'm going to come home and I'm going to put it back into like the phone, right? Okay, sharp. Now I do that. The first day I did that, right? That was the only time that I did. When I'm coming back, as I'm checking, because it was the time that our phones used to only insert one SIM card, I dropped the SIM card. I did not know where I dropped it. Guys, I looked and looked and looked for it. The only thing that is in my mind is that, oh my gosh, he's going to go to that phone and he's going to realize that that SIM card is not there and it's in my mother's room. So obviously, you know, I'm going to be one of the first suspects and everything. I was really, literally so scared, guys, because I was really scared of my dad, you know. But then I remember just telling everyone, like, you know, my sisters, and also in English, it's cousins, right? Your uncle's kids. But in Venda, it's my sisters, that, guys, if anyone like sees a SIM card, please, you know, tell me. Now, this was towards year end even. Please tell me because, you know, that SIM card is not mine, right? Everybody agreed, sharp. Now, basically, I passed matric. I go to varsity. I think it was around March that my mother calls me, and my mother's like, yo, ushushu in this household. I'm like, what's going on? They're like, well, let me tell you something. Somebody took your father's SIM card, and the person made calls worth of 25,000 rands. Now, this is back in 2009, which I do understand 25,000 rands is not chicken money. You understand? Now, obviously, at that time, I knew I'm the one that took the SIM card, but I'm like, that was last year. Like, how is it that this is only coming out now? And who has called? Because I know I've made a few calls, but it would not be anywhere close to that. And I was only now grasping the aspect of, oh, a SIM card that is a contract, actually, you know, if you're calling, it will bill. So it means the times that I've been calling, the call amount, the money was so small that he would pay for it with his contract and he would even realize. Do you understand? So I'm now just like, my goodness, like what happened? Well, fast forward, they find out that one of my uncle's daughter picked up the SIM card. Did I talk to her? With everyone that if there's a SIM card you get, it makes calls, please tell me. Yes, I did. And she was the one that had made phone calls worth of that amount, because they did go in to try trace the numbers, and it was basically her friends and stuff like that. And so, you know, they now had to get to who actually took the SIM card out. At first, I was really scared, guys, but then I had to go home for, you know, March holidays. I think it's March. And when I went there, they had to sit us down, and I was like, I'm going to just come clean, because first of all, I did not want anyone to take the fault of what I had done. You know, taking the SIM card out. And so, you know, I was like, okay, it was me. I remember my mom slapped me so hard, guys. My mother started like just pounding on me. And I remember, because at that time, she had really not believed that I would have done it, because my mom and I were very close. I think she had thought that maybe I would tell her before I would actually confess in front of everyone. And so she was very hurt and also very much disappointed. But my father's resolution, when he basically saw that, you know, a SIM card was used, I took it out, but I'm not the one that called to that amount. He felt that the punishment that was fitting that crime of 25K was to punish me with my future. So he basically said that he's kicking me out of his house. And he's not going to take me to school anymore. And mind you guys, I was in varsity at that time, so I was not allowed to come back to his house, and he was not going to pay for the fees. Now, this was in 2009. I remember he had promised to say he was going to send me money to buy winter clothes, because I think when I got kicked out, yeah, I don't know. I think they found out about the SIM card Cabo March, so, and then I went home for June, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember, guys, but somewhere there, between somewhere the 1st June and December and March, right? So that's what he basically said. Now that's the only I feel like that's the time. So sorry for that, but that was the time that I feel my mom did put her foot on business hard to say that, you know what, like I'm gonna have to see what to do with her, like, but she has to go to school. And I remember it was very hard on my mom. I don't even want to talk about this, honestly, like this part. I don't think I'm ready, but it was very, very hard on my mom. I was also very much disappointed in myself, that I had done that. But at the same time, I think that it's very important to see the two completely different parenting styles. My uncle never kicked his child out of the house, even though she's the one that made the calls. He continued to take his kids to school. He made sure that his kids are gonna get education. My father literally saw nothing wrong. He kicked me out 2009. I only went home 2011. So this whole time, did he care what I was eating? No, he was busy buying new cars because the village Kaluku should see him as a rich man. People, I feel like, have just walked on eggshells when it comes to my father so much that he really, truly, in my personal opinion, of course, just believed that he could just do anything he wants, like with anyone. And for me, that angers me a lot because I feel like there's a lot of adults in my family that failed me and my sisters, especially with the stuff that I'm going to tell you guys that happened after my mother passed away. But that was the second time that I can remember my father actually kicking me out of the house. It was for that SIM card. He never paid my fees. He did not care what was happening. My mother is the one that literally had to struggle with me. I remember the same year, 2009, when I was in Medunsa. That's a whole chapter on its own. I'm going to write a book. But I remember I was so stressed, guys, I fainted. There's a guy called Dr. Netengwe, whose name is Funzo, who is a brother to me. That guy saved my life, I remember when I started seeing just flashes and I was not okay, I luckily called him and, he ran to my room. When he came, I had just, wobbled to get to the door to unlock. And by the thing I can remember is that I saw light and it was like I was falling and I saw a figure, but I could hear his voice saying, Mungana, Mungana. And then I don't remember, it was like lights out. Apparently I actually fainted and they called an ambulance that came, fetched me and took me to the hospital. And I was admitted for 3 days and the diagnosis was stress. So I literally almost died. If I had obviously passed out, we don't know what would have happened if I had just passed out. And my brother literally did not come in, who's Funzo, as I'm saying. So there's a lot that basically, actually happened in varsity. There's a lot. I think that the other one part, that this part I will never ever forget, was when I passed matric, right? Before this whole SIM card thing was even found. I remember like there was an argument in the house. My father wanted me to do teaching and he wanted me to go to Univen, right? Now, I wanted to be a doctor. Okay, I wanted to be a doctor and my mother was like, yes. So the place that I had applied to, guys, it was Medunsa and only Medunsa. That's how much I wanted to be a doctor. And so I remember when Medunsa was not responding, my mother basically said, I need to go with her. We need to go to Joburg so that we can go to other colleges or varsities to see, because I had passed with a bachelor. So I remember the day that we were supposed to leave, the following day, my mom just coming and saying, you know what, my child, don't worry, we're going to go together. And I could see she was very hurt. And I'm like, Mama, what is it? Turns out from what she told me, she had asked that my father accompanies us and he refused. And, I think she had even offered that she's going to pay for the transportation. But I do remember, man, that there was a conversation around this, And the next thing, literally the day we were supposed to leave, the following day, this other guy comes, he got a job, right? He's being called, he's going to be training to be a police officer, and he has to go to Mpumalanga. And he's coming to my father. He needs him to help. Because let me tell you guys something about my father. My father will help the village, but his own kids. He will not know what you're eating for years, but the village children, these children that are homeless, well, not homeless because no one is homeless in Venda, but I would say these children that are like impoverished, he will even take them to school because, Kaloku, the village must know and see. His own kids, just, I'm coming, still relax. So I remember that guy when he came. I was still young. But I did not understand why my father was going to drive someone to Mpumalanga, but he couldn't drive me to Varsity, Joburg. I literally just did not understand, guys. Like, what is going on here? But he did. He accompanied the guy. To go to Mpumalanga, guys, you go past Gauteng, if I'm not mistaken. There's definitely a route that you can use to go via Gauteng. And he left us home with my mother. But he accompanied that guy, for him to get his job. I remember my mom and I actually getting in a bus the following day and coming to Joburg. And, we walked, guys, we walked. I mean, my mom knew Joburg, but not like that, But Shem, that woman made sure and did everything that she could to make sure that I'd be settled. I remember I was accepted go to UT. Can't even remember which course I was going to be making. And then doing. And then after that, she had even organized like accommodation for me in Sunnyside. And I had already viewed. Everything was fine. She was going to be renting a room for me. And as we were busy about to finalize everything in TUT, Medunsa then calls to say, hey, you were not accepted for MBCHB, but you'll be taken for BSc. And my mom was like, listen, my child, Medunsa is Medunsa. We are going there. So we stopped everything with TUT, and that's how I ended up actually going to Medunsa. But yeah, it wasn't really a pleasant experience, There were times where... Let me get water. We're not going to cry. We're not going to cry. There were times where I would go to bed hungry. I would. I had a very close niche in terms of friends. And we became brothers and sisters over there. When one had, we all had. And so I would like to just shout out Salu, Ahuna, Funzo, Tumi. Oh my gosh, she was going to kill me. Abatendi. Oh my God. Mentioning people's names is dangerous because if there's anyone I've forgotten, I'm sorry. I didn't forget you. My mind is not okay. I'm emotional. But yeah, I would honestly go ahead and say that with all of them, anytime that I wanted food and I didn't have, I would go to any of their room and I will eat. Even with Pfunzo, I remember, as I'm saying, that guy is my brother for life. He would actually say that, listen, the time we were still staying in Tabong Lodge because the varsity had rented there, he would actually say, because I didn't have money to buy food at school, but I would have, food maybe at home, so I would be able to cook. So he would say that, listen, in the afternoon when we're at school, we will use his student card because he had a bursary. And with me, when we get home, I will cook and we would eat together. And so that's how we did it for a very long time. And mind you guys, sorry, it's not like he could not afford 2 meals, because remember, he was buying for himself and then me. So he could buy for himself and also buy that same food for later. So he didn't do it because, he couldn't afford or whatever. He did it literally just to help me, And that's something that I feel I will forever be grateful for. Even now in our adultship, I still appreciate all of them. I'm still in contact with all of them. and I absolutely love them. But yeah, it definitely was a village, and I don't know how I would have done or what I would have done without them. I do remember my mom used to give me 500 rands, and sometimes she would ask like, okay, do you still have money? I knew my mother didn't have money. I didn't want to stress my mom, so I of course had to say yes, even though I didn't have. And I remember there was a time that it was later. Now I had switched to BK and I was getting paid that side. And I remember my mom, she looked at me and she was talking. Oh, crap. And I literally saw tears gather in my mother's eyes. And she was like, oh, man. She was like, I used to ask you if you had money, even though I knew you didn't have. And I knew you would say you had, and I knew you did not have. But you saying you had somehow made me a bit better, feel a bit better, even though I knew you did not have, because I knew that that money was not enough. And she used to tell me, I used to be so scared that you're gonna go out there and maybe start dating old men to try and get money and everything. And let me tell you something. Meanwhile, my mother and I were in these struggles. My father was living large, honey. The village knows him as this man that has money. He's busy buying cars. My father's life is there, say. We are literally, my mother is living penny to penny. There is a lot of abuse. It was not physical abuse, I will not lie, but a lot of emotional abuse that I watched my mother go through. And I think that also is one of the reasons why, if you are a man and I'm with you and you start with your bullshit, I'm out. Because I cannot live the life my mother lived. I refuse. I'll rather die single, But basically, yeah, it's not like life was perfect, even when my mother was alive. But I think it was, not I think, I know for a fact it was 1,000 times better, because my mother was in Bogoto, guys. Not that I'm praising the struggle life, but looking at also the time she was born and everything, that woman did everything that she could. And I truly do believe that had she chosen better or different for herself, I do believe she would still be alive. I really do. I do believe that she would still be here. For some of you guys that do not know, I will not really get too much into it, but they said that my mother's death was natural causes, right? But I've heard that it was heart failure. That's one of the stuff that they said, that it was heart failure. And being a woman and an adult now, I do see it. I do see it why her heart would have failed. Whew. So, yeah. I think today we're going to stop here. And the next video I feel like is going to be even more heavier. We'll get to my mother passing. But yeah, obviously with the other time of getting kicked out, that was after my mother had passed. So we will also get into that on the next video that I will make sure that it comes out tomorrow for you guys. Okay, so tomorrow, same time, same place, part 2 will actually be coming. And remember, I'm only doing these videos because I want to get and give you guys a background of the struggle that we've been going through up until I decided that I'm going to actually go to maintenance court and try force my father to support the kids he brought to earth. And that's where we're even getting more abused. So yeah, this story does really get deep and really sad and really serious. Okay, so yeah, I love you guys. I hope I'll see you for part 2 tomorrow. Bye, ninjas.